Hey there, thanks for joining me. We're going to check out the new UAD Distressor plugin on some drums here. So without further ado, let's get to it. So I've got a basic setup here. You can see kick, snare, overhead, ribbon overhead, some toms and all that kind of stuff. So let's start with just a little playthrough. So that's kind of what I'm working with. So let's bring this to the snare first and see what we've got going on. Okay, let's pop in the distressor. Let's see if we can get that to come up a little more here. You can hear right away, even in this example, where the distressors, even though there's a slight increase in volume, it's really helping the snare drum become a lot more upfront. Let's hear that again. Just bypassed and drop it in. There's a little bit of tracking compression on the snare drum already that you can hear, but you know, who's not afraid to compress a snare drum when you're tracking. All right, let's move on to the overheads. Let's see what we've got going on here. Actually, maybe we'll do the ribbon overheads first. Get rid of that. All right, so kind of basic overhead sound there, and let's jump in the distressor. There we go, that's sounding a little better. And there's something that I actually just noticed here. The default settings for this plugin make everything quite a bit louder. I'm thinking like 3 to 5 decibels. So when you're A-Bing it, it's good to make note of that so you don't think it just sounds better. All right, let's hear this in context. Bypass. Let's move on. Let's have a listen to the kick drum. Now, I noticed when I was just checking out this session that there's been some processing that was printed on the tracks, including the kick drum and the room mics, but we are just going to work with it. So here's what we've got going on for the kick. Kind of thuddy. I think we can improve that quite a bit, especially using the detector and the distortion here. Now this is kind of a subtle change, but you can hear it pulling the kick drum up front just a little bit. And in context. Bypass. Wow, you can really hear that coming forward. And I actually don't even want to see this because I have a couple distressors and I don't want to buy this plugin because it's a little expensive. But so far, so good. Okay, so let's hear what we've got going on just with those on the kick, the snare, and the ribbon overhead. All right, I'm liking that. Now let's go to our already squashed room mic. Now, full disclaimer, I know it's already compressed. We're just gonna compress it more. Okay. So you can hear it's already like super compressed and it's kind of all over the place dynamically. These room mics were set up in a very strange position, quite far away from each other, so you can hear that there's an imbalance on the left and right with the low frequency content if you've got headphones on. Whoops. You can even see it right here on the right side. So let's pop in the distressor and see if we can level that out a bit and make this a little bit more controlled, but still giving us some room sound. All right, let's hear that in context. Bypassed. Yeah, you can hear that just pushing back those room mics a little bit more and letting these close mics cut through. So let's hear what we've got going all together here. Now here I'm just going to use the distressor and kind of pull the hi-hats forward. I don't like how the hi-hats sound in the close mic, so let's mute that, and then I'm going to use this to actually pull them closer in our overhead. So they're there, but they're not very exciting. So let's see if we can change that. This could also be a tutorial on how to overcompress drums very quickly. But so just focusing on the hi-hats. Let's hear what we've got going on. I can hear that's brought forward the hi-hats, but it's also brought forward the snare drum and some of that other noise. So let's pull that down and have a listening context. Okay, so you can already hear the drums are a little bit more compressed, a little bit more exciting. So let's just disable the distressor on all these channels and hear what we were working with. There you go. So you can hear it's a tighter drum sound, a little bit more forward. And then when we start adding in instruments, like let's drop in the bass track right here, you can hear that it's really helping pull things together. All right, Alright, so I like what it's doing with the drums. Now let's look and see. This is kind of an oddly played bass part, and it's quite staccato, but it needs to be forward and tight, but it needs to stay back from what's happening with the kick drum. So let's see how the Distressor can help us there. Now these settings are actually what they recommend right on the faceplate of the Distressor. You can see, so this means opto, so you're in opto mode, an attack time of 10, so very, very slow, and a release of 0. So really slow attack, really, really fast release. So these are kind of the prescribed settings by Empirical Labs. So let's hear what that's going to do for us. Alright, now let's hear that before and after. There's no Distressor. And the Distressor. So you can hear it tightens up the bass, gives a little bit more attack, and I think that's going to help with how it locks in with the kick drum. And you can see me cycling through modes here. If you're familiar with a Distressor, what you have to do to change the special filters in the audio circuit is you keep clicking through, and then it'll select each combination that you have available to you. Something that's really handy with the plugin that I've noticed is that you can just click and select what you want, so you don't have to click the button so many times. I'm kind of just used to doing it from using the hardware, but you know, maybe I'll grow out of it. Alright, so that's just a little taste of what you can do with the Distressor on some drums and bass. I'm going to post another video and just show kind of what's happening with some lead guitars, some rhythm guitars.